It's Thursday, and it's Steve Fox from Border City Financial, and we are hosting another webcast tonight. And this is live, so you could be watching it live, you could be watching it after the fact. That's either way, doesn't matter. We're glad that you came to take a look at what we're doing anyway. So tonight we are hosting William Spurdza. I know him as Will, and I've always called him Will because I've known him for quite a while, but I'm not sure, Will, whether you prefer going by Will or by William. Do you have a preference?
Doesn't matter.
Anyway, Will is the owner of Windsor Landscaping, and I'm thrilled to have him on tonight. Again, I feel like I say this every week. I mean, I certainly can't know everything about everything. I know a lot about a few things, but I don't know a lot about landscaping. And I self-admittedly do not have a terribly green thumb. So maybe we'll talk about this a little bit during the webcast, about how not green my thumb is. But Will's expertise is in landscaping, which does include actually not killing plants. And so so when it comes to not killing plants, I do need help, because I'm not always at the best at not killing plants. So just before we jump into that, I want to play a short video that Will has on his website that talks a little bit about what Windsor Landscaping is, and we'll go view that right now.
Landscaping started off as a summer job when I was about 13 years old, and since then it's grown into a passion that I have for my life. My name is William Spurdza, and I am the owner of Windsor Landscaping. Windsor Landscaping offers a wide variety of services, from interlocking brick to sod, do installs, maintenance, anything that you need in your yard or anything that you want to create around your home or your workplace, we can do that for you. My favorite kind of projects, I would say, is when you have a blank slate and the homeowner says, you know, I want to do something with my yard, show me some of your ideas, because I get to use my creative license, and I love doing work with interlock brick and stone, and the whole point is to create a living space, and it's something they're going to see every day. I want to make their yard or their environment beautiful, so it gives me a chance to sort of almost express myself in the way that I do the work. When I first realized that landscaping was something that I wanted to do for a career, it wasn't an instant decision, it was a gradual process. Originally, I was going through university, I wanted to become a teacher. Landscaping was my summer job, and as the years progressed and I learned more and more about the industry, it started to sort of take over my ambitions, where I wanted to pursue landscaping instead of my original plan of teaching. Now it's become like a passion in my life, and I love it, and I can't imagine doing anything else.
So that was a great video, and does give us a little bit of a background on sort of how you got to where you are, but that was very brief. Maybe you want to take a couple of minutes and just expand a little bit on that, because landscaping to me is an art. And I've said this on a couple of other webcasts that I've done. I have an artistic part of my brain when it comes to numbers and logic, although that seems like a conflict, but I also have that for music. So I realize that I've got components that work together, but I am conceptually challenged when it comes to putting color on a wall and trying to envision what that looks like. And certainly when I first talked to you about coming and doing landscaping at our home, which we love, it turned out absolutely fabulous. That is something that I'm conceptually challenged by. And please don't embarrass me by repeating the conversation back over live over the air that we had at that time, where I said, I don't think I have any idea what I want.
That's okay. There's a lot of people like that.
Yeah. Actually, I was clear about one thing. I said I would like it to be as maintenance free as possible because I'm good at killing stuff.
Yeah. I don't think you've killed anything yet, have you?
I have not. I have.
There you go.
Well, you solved my problem,
Yeah.
right? So, it was perfect. So anyway, all of that aside, tell us a little bit more about sort of where this passion grew out of, and how it's brought you to this point.
Well, it started out, the video kind of went into it a little bit. It was a summer job. Um, I started originally, if you want to go way, way back, I remember when I was maybe 9 years old and I started working with my grandpa. He had a bunch of apple trees and I would go there on the weekends sometimes and he would be pruning the apple trees. And I was just a little kid, so I'd pick up all the sticks and then he'd pay me like $5 an hour. And those are always really, really good memories I had being outside, doing something physical and making money. And fast forward a little bit, I got my first job was with a friend from church. My mom, we were at a church conference and my mom goes up to me and she said, Will, I got you a job. It's with Tim Sweeney. He does landscaping. And I thought, okay, that sounds good. So we would be cutting grass and doing small maintenance, that sort of thing. I did that most summers, and I think I actually got unofficially fired from that job. I was really young. I think I was around like 13 years old, something like that. And I slept through my alarm a few times, and I think I was unofficially fired from that job. But we didn't really like talk about it because I was 13. It was just like I stopped getting calls for work. And later on, I got another job with a landscaper, and he kind of took me under his wing. And I really, really wanted to prove myself. I didn't want to get fired again. So I told myself, I'm going to work very, very hard for this man. And I did. And eventually, I took over the grass cutting maintenance division for him. It was me and my brother. And so we were in charge of 50 or so lawns. We would do that 3 days a week. And then the other days, we would do landscaping. And he eventually sold that business to Landscape Effects. And we also were hired by Landscape Effects. It was kind of like a package deal. We all transferred over there. And I learned, working for Derek was his name originally. Working for him, I learned a lot of work ethic and working really, really long hours. We would work from around 7 till 7 at night. And sometimes we were like working in the dark. I'm like, this is crazy, you know? But it had to get done. And so I learned a lot of work ethic and teamwork working for Derek. He's the one who sold his business to Landscape Effects. And when I went over to Landscape Effects, I saw a different side of the business. I saw really, really good branding. And obviously, Landscape Effects is on a way bigger scale. So they have, I think, hundreds of workers. And they have these huge $100,000 trailers and huge equipment setups. And they have really, really big brand recognition. So I got to see the two different ways almost of running a landscaping business, the small scale and then the larger scale. And I kind of um, pulled ideas from both. And um, I think I started formulating the idea of starting my own company was when I did some landscaping for a church friend. It was Dave Willipek. He's the injury attorney. So I started working for him, and he said he would pay me $25 an hour. And I was like, wow, $25 an hour. That's almost double what Landscape Effects pays me. That's awesome. And he wanted me to do a interlocking brick job for him. And he gave me $1,000 check as a deposit, and I was blown away. I didn't even know the concept of getting deposits for jobs so you can purchase materials. And as I was doing that job, I was working in Kingsville. It was on his beautiful like estate. It's this huge property, beautiful trees, very peaceful. So I was in a peaceful environment. I was making almost double what I was making for landscape effects. And I was working for myself, and I thought, this is really, really cool. I could get used to this. This is nice. Is this what it's like to just work for yourself? And from then on, I kind of planned on starting my own business. But I figured it would be years down the road. And one day, I was working at Landscape Effects. I was just leaf blowing off a driveway, and it felt like God told me this is too slow. And not long after that, I quit working for Landscape FX. I only had one other job lined up, but I felt it was the right thing to do. And on paper, it was kind of crazy because my wife was pregnant. We were just married. I only had one job lined up, and I quit. And my parents told me, "Don't do it. You're being stupid," you know. But my wife Chantel, she's very, very supportive, and she helped me line up other customers. And then that's how I started. That was July. I think, yeah, it was 3 years ago in July. So that's kind of how. And then I was very blessed. Anytime a job would end, I would find another one. And it was kind of like I was holding on by the, I was very, very fortunate because I would have nothing lined up. And then all of a sudden at the last minute, I would get another job and it kind of kept snowballing. So, and here I am, I'm still doing it. I survived.
It's interesting that you talk about the desire to be self-employed. I've been self-employed for just shy of 30 years.
Whoa.
It's kind of hard to imagine going and working for somebody else at this
Yeah.
point in time. Well, I mean, I may or I may not at some point in time in the future. I have no idea. But at this point in time, I don't have any plans to do that. But also being self-employed gives you the opportunity to, I often call it the privilege of working more hours than anyone else who works for you.
Yeah.
Right? Because
100%.
if you're going to be self-employed, you can't be afraid to work at all. You can't be afraid to work a lot. But you also have the ability to kind of design the job the way that you like it, right? So you are in control of it, and so you're in control of your pricing. You're in control of how much you decide to take on, how many employees you decide to have, like. Anyway, I didn't want to get kind of off course on being self-employed, but it's just fascinating that you talk about it that way because it was almost 30 years ago. We had 4 young kids, and I was full-time gainfully employed with somebody else when I sat down at the dining room table and said to my wife, how about I just quit my job and become self-employed?
Was she happy about that?
She was also very supportive, but when you look on the outside of something like that, it looks ludicrous, right? And you say, well, what am I doing? But at the same time, these are where entrepreneurs are born, and entrepreneurs are the small businesses which are the drivers of our economy. And this is actually one of the main reasons why I've been hosting these webcasts, is because I want to support small businesses in our local community, because they are the drivers of our economy. They are the people who employ all the people in our community. They are the people who supply our community. And I want as much as possible to promote that and help support that. So anyway, that's a great story. That's awesome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So we have a comment or a question from our live audience already. It says, my landscaping is horrible. I know what that's like. My landscape, it used to be horrible. My landscaping is horrible, and I know I can't afford to do everything I want to do at once. Where is a good place to start?
It kind of depends on what you want to do with your landscaping. Like if you just want to trim the bushes, if you want to pull the weeds, do you want to extend the beds? Do you want to switch? Like, you kind of need a little bit more details in the question. Another way to look at it, I think a lot of people get overwhelmed starting a landscaping job. So if you can, in your mind, break it down into smaller pieces or even geographic sections. So maybe you can say, This one bush is really bad. Maybe I can trim it this weekend, or this section needs to be weeded, or I want to add some plants, or I want to fix this patch of grass. If you break it down into smaller chunks, that usually makes it more manageable. If you give me a little bit more details about what you are wanting to do with your landscaping, the lawn is shot. There are no real bushes. The lawn is shot. Okay, well, I usually tell people to rip it up and start over again. That is not the cheapest method. I recommend it though. No real flower beds. Alternatively, um, the best defense against getting weeds in your lawn is to have a really rich, thick turf. They will outcompete the weeds for water and food and sunlight. So if you aerate and if you fertilize and if you water and if you want to have someone who has their pesticide license spray to kill the weeds and kind of give you a start, that may help you get your grass looking better. And I know, Steve, you overseed your lawn, so you spread grass seed in the fall. The fall and the spring is a really good time to overseed, and overseeding is pretty cheap. So you're introducing more seed into the lawn, which will
It's a
hopefully
whole
grow
lot
more.
cheaper than starting again.
Yeah, way cheaper than starting again. But most people, that's the most common thing I'm requested or asked to do, is to rip out their lawn and restart. There's a lot of crabgrass and creeping Charlie around here. It's fun.
There is a lot of that, but I got another question,
Yeah.
because um, a lot of people ask, or I've had conversation with people about what is a good length to cut your grass down to. And I know that depends on whether it's kind of your last cut of the season, before you get into the winter. But can you give us some opinion on sort of what is a good length, as a minimum and as a maximum to cut it, to make sure that it outcompetes the rest of the weeds?
Yeah, you want to cut off approximately a third of the blade of grass. Because a lot of people, they don't realize, a grass is a living organism and it needs to have a certain amount of exposure to light so it can grow. And so they recommend a third of the blade cut off. And you want to, I know a lot of people like bagging their lawn clippings, but you actually, if you can mulch it or just spread it, like shoot it out of the lawnmower chute, that's all those blades of grass. If you're reintroducing nitrogen, which is natural fertilizer, the natural food for the grass. So every time, I know a lot of, when I was cutting grass a lot, people would request it to be bagged. And at the end of the day, we'd have these huge, heavy garbage bags full of grass. But all those heavy bags, that's hundreds of pounds of nitrogen that you're taking out of the soil. So I would say a third mulch or spread out your lawn clippings. And in terms of height, I would probably say don't go higher than 6 inches, because you don't want there to be too much moisture in the lawn. You don't want to have like certain blades overshadowing the smaller shoots that are coming up. And I think, or else you get a lot of thatch, so you get a lot of dead um, blades of grass underneath.
So
That would be my recommendations.
if up to 6 is fine and you're cutting off 1/3, you're cutting it down to 4.
I think talking to people who grow the grass on a sod farm, they would know best, because that's their job, right?
Okay. The last on this sort of comment stream was, the lawn was new 20 years ago. Neighbors' weeds took over and I gave up fighting. I'm interested. Did he give up fighting with the neighbors or with
probably both?
Yeah, maybe both. We've always had dogs, so spraying scares me. There are areas where there are actual bans on spraying some things on lawns. We had pets. We don't currently, but we had pets for years and years and years. We didn't like using any chemicals at all because we didn't want the dogs to be exposed to it. We didn't want our kids to be exposed to it. We didn't want to be exposed to it. So we have tried to do the best that we could with trying to deal with it like you said, right? You leave the clippings on the
Hmm.
lawn. You don't let it grow too long so that you don't have, piles and piles of grass when you cut it, and trying to add all the nutrients back into the lawn. So anyway, here I am talking like I have any idea what I'm doing. The
It sounds
reality
like
is
you
like
do.
the reality is I get the lawnmower started and I take care of it.
Yeah, and it
Correct.
says 2.5 to 3 inches is the
Okay.
optimal height for Kentucky bluegrass, which is usually the grass around here is a blend. I know if you overseed a lot, it's more of like a fescue kind of.
Mhm.
So yeah, 2.5 to 3 inches would be ideal.
Well, then I'm going to get out my tape measure and make sure I'm not cutting it
Every
in
blade,
properly.
every blade, Steve, make
Yeah.
sure.
So make sure your blade is sharp.
Yeah, that's actually an important thing too, is to make sure that your blade is sharp. That's a really
Yeah.
good tip.
Yeah. I only know that because I just got it sharpened.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I did want to do is I want to pull up your website because I wanted to show people a little bit of your work, especially because one of the photos on here happens to be at our place. It's not all the landscaping that you've done at our place, but it does give some idea. So this is on your website, which you can either Google as Windsor Landscaping or type in as premiumlandscaping.ca. And here are some photos of some of the work. This looks like a before and after, so maybe that was a new
Yeah.
build.
Hmm.
So you also do a lot of work in stone, obviously. This looks like a
Yeah.
fire pit.
Yeah, that's ideally um that's specifically what I want to get into more is the
Okay,
stone.
all right. So this one on the right is part of our front yard where you did some landscaping. Boy, the grass doesn't look very good at that point in time.
Uh,
It looks a whole lot better than that at the moment. But but yeah, this was some of the landscaping that you did in the front of our place. And I did ask you specifically, I wanted something that was going to be as maintenance free as possible. And that is exactly what you provided because I haven't killed anything yet.
yeah.
So these are just some of the pictures of some of your work, and obviously they're gorgeous because this is your area of expertise, and obviously not the expertise of the homeowner. Otherwise, they would be doing it themselves. Anyway, I just wanted to highlight some of that just because it was also some of the work that you did at our place. So you did some other work out at the road. We have some larger stones. You did some work at the back of our yard, and we're happy with everything that you did.
I'm so
Um,
glad.
yeah. So I just wanted to take a minute to ask you some questions. You mentioned this is something more of the stonework. This is something
Mhm.
that you would like to do more of. Can you talk a little bit about what you have done and sort of where you envision going from here, just in case people are interested in contacting you?
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of stonework, I want to get more into creating retaining walls, walkways, fire pits, driveways, all using pavers or interlocking brick. I just call them pavers. And for almost 30 years now, everyone has been using the exact same type of paver for almost every job in Windsor Essex County. It's bizarre. Like any driveway you see, almost any walkway you see, or like plaza, it's all made out of the same pioneer stone. It's a 4 inch by 8 inch rectangle. And I think that's because of the proximity of the supplier, Santerra. They create it and it's cheap, so people have been using it. But there are so many other paver manufacturers and so many different beautiful shapes and sizes and textures of stone. And I want to bring some of those different products to Windsor Essex because they're used everywhere. They're used in London, Toronto, Ohio, Indiana, like literally everywhere except for here. We're like stuck in the Stone Age, pun intended, when it comes to the materials we use, and same with the installation methods too. So I want to bring fresh, better methods to install so that they're longer lasting and better quality. And then I want to use more variety of products and offer a better service. And one of the questions is, are fire pits legal in the city?
Yeah, didn't know if this falls inside of your area of expertise. We
I
live
don't
out in
know.
the county outside, about half hour outside of Windsor, and one of the first things that I did when we moved out here was I drove to the OPP station and I said, I would love to have a fire pit in my backyard, and I just wanted to know if it's legal to do that. And the officer kind of looked me straight in the eye and as seriously as he could said, well, if you had some sort of a grill that could
Yeah.
go over top of that, well, then it would be technically for cooking food, in which case it would be okay.
Yes.
I was like,
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So,
It depends too. Like I know LaSalle is different and like Cotham's different. It's a municipality thing. So
yeah, yeah, each community is different. So, a phone call to the fire department probably would get you the answer that you're looking for,
yes,
because
for
I'm
sure.
I'm really unsure. I don't live in the city of Windsor, so I'm really unsure about what the regulations are.
Yeah.
Um, one of the other things, yeah, as you were talking about sort of where you envision your business going, you're talking about
Mm.
doing a lot more stone work and other things. What other changes would you like to see in the industry, or maybe more specifically in your business, when it comes to landscaping? And the reason why I ask this is because um, during COVID, it has been fascinating to me, just like it was back after 9/11 in 2001, that people all of a sudden decided to invest more money in their property.
Mhm.
I remember back after 9/11, all of a sudden, you couldn't get into Home Depot, you couldn't buy stuff, everybody was buying everything up. You couldn't get, a home renovation contractor because everybody was swamped. Everybody was spending money and making investment in their own property because they wanted to spend time at home. They felt safer doing that. People didn't want to travel because they weren't sure what was going to happen. And although this is a completely different circumstance now with COVID, we're seeing some of the same things where people are spending a lot more time at home and they're making enormous investments into their property so that they can enjoy their property because they're staying home. Very few people are traveling anywhere now. I don't know when or if that will change, but at this point in time, I would imagine that this would increase substantially the demand from people to contract people like yourself to improve their properties so that they can spend time at home and enjoy the way that it looks and with their families. So maybe if you can just talk about that just for a minute, so that we get your thoughts on sort of where the industry is going.
Yeah. The demand has increased a lot. I think with everyone being at home more, they've had more time to look at their property, and a lot of people are able to work from home. So instead of, going to the office or going to their place of work, coming home, going inside, relaxing, they might be working on their back porch or inside. And I think it's because they notice more about their house or things they want to change, or it might be like you said, people for whatever reason they just want to invest more into their property. So yeah, a huge amount or a huge increase in demand I've noticed, and a lot of people too. They're taking the last customer I worked for. They had several trips lined up, and when those fell through, they took the money and they put it into landscaping instead and said, "We'll go on a trip later." So yeah, huge increase in demand, and also too, there's so many new homes being built in Windsor. Like there's such a housing boom. They're building new subdivisions. So I think that adds to the demand as well. So in terms of the changes I want to make for my business, it's not really. It's sort of COVID related, I guess. It's more relying on machinery and mechanizing than manpower. So for the first person I worked for, he was very reliant on the number of people working for him to complete a task. And then when I switched over to landscape effects, they have a lot of machinery. So what I want to invest in is in labor saving equipment, whether it be Bobcat or they have, it's almost like a motorized wheelbarrow, but it has caterpillars and it can hold like 8 times what a wheelbarrow can hold, and you ride on it. So if you can ride on anything instead of walking, you're going to save yourself a lot of labor and effort. And they're also, in terms of moving pavers, they have these machines that are just essentially giant suction cups, and you're able to lift up 500-pound pieces of stone very, very easily. And it's almost like on a spring, like a coil. And then they have other smaller backpack units. So you wear it like a backpack, and you can pick up the stone without actually bending over. So there's a ton of different labor saving technologies out there available. So I want to incorporate those more and more because then they never call in sick. You know what I mean? And you don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
That actually sounds like back savers to me.
Yes, it is. 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
because I'm kind of glad that you've never called me to say, "Hey, Steve, can you grab the other side of this 500-pound stone and help me move it?"
Yeah. And I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Because even the one that you put out at the road in front of our place, like
uh,
I have no idea what that stone weighs. It doesn't make any difference. I look at it and think, well, nobody's going to steal it,
yeah,
right?
that's for sure. And we shimmied it over a little bit. We had to shimmy it over a
Yeah,
couple feet. Like it was
yeah.
hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the other questions that I have, because I was using myself as an example, because when it comes to how to conceptualize, something that would look good, we had some conversation. I remember sitting at our dining room table where we talked about. You said, "Well, what about this?" And I said, "Well, I don't even know what that is."
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you talk about flowers and bushes and plants and trees and stuff like that. Half the time, I didn't even know what it is that you're talking about, because it's just not an area of expertise to me. So when it comes to how you interact with customers, and I'm saying this because if there's somebody either watching live or is going to be watching this on YouTube or Facebook or our website after the fact, I want them to understand how you can interact with the customer. So, do you prefer that somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I just built this house and the yard is nothing but dirt. I want you to design something for me"? Or would you prefer it where the customer actually knows exactly what they want to do and designs the whole thing and then has you implement it? Or does it even matter? Could it be either way?
I prefer, to be honest, kind of depends. Sometimes the customer knows exactly what they want, and I do not like their style of landscaping, but I'll do it. I'll do it to make them happy. A lot of people come to me with pictures and they say, I want you to make this. The job I'm working on right now, it was literally a Pinterest picture. She said, I want it exactly like this. And that's what they're doing. So I personally like it when people give me a tabula rosa. They say, here's a blank slate, do whatever you want. This is my budget. I really like that. But more often than not, I give them a design, and they say, I don't like this. I don't like this. I want to change this. And so people who had no opinion on what they wanted, all of a sudden they're like, they're very specific about what they want. So usually there's like a first draft, and then the second one will change things up. But then there is occasionally people who really let me do whatever to their yard, and that's my favorite. But more often than not, you you almost have to draw the opinion out of them or draw their preferences out of them because they may act like they don't care, they don't know, but then when they see some things, that's how you, when they see some examples or thoughts, that's where you kind of get their opinions. but I'm very, very open to changes. So yeah, usually a lot of people are like you, where they need to see something to understand what it's going to look like, and that's why I'm going to be investing more in design software, so you can see the 2D image and then the 3D image. But I like, I guess a roundabout answer is I like the blank slate. But it's also nice to have people who know exactly what they want, and then I can provide it, and then it's easy. It's easier that way. There's less back and forth. So.
I, along the way, as you were talking, I was thinking, next time I get a haircut, I'm going to ask the person cutting my hair if they can give me a haircut just like you. I'm going to go with I'm going to say, I got this from Pinterest, and I'm going to have
Yeah,
a
yeah,
photo of you.
yeah,
I want lots of hair like that.
yeah. Just do
And,
scalp massages.
yeah, and they're going to say, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that. So what other missing pieces are there to this? Like if somebody's contemplating hiring someone to come and do landscaping for them, what have we not covered so far tonight in this webcast that that people should know if they should be calling you?
I think you
Mentioned
there are.
budget. Sorry, that was one of the just sort of I didn't complete my thought. That was one of the things that you dropped into one of your sentences, which I think is crucially important, because that was one of the questions you asked us. Right? What is your budget? How
Yes.
much do you have to work with? Right. So if somebody says $50,
Yeah, I'd be like,
I'll get you a rose bush. Right.
yeah, yeah.
But this is an area of expertise that I don't possess. So we came up with a budget, and just like you said right at the beginning of the webcast, we did it in pieces. We didn't do it all at once.
Mhm.
Right? We started in the backyard, then we did some work in the front yard, right? And we just piecemealed it as we had the budget to work with. So a budget is really important, that people know ahead of time, this is how much money I have to work with, so that you can give them an expectation of what they can or cannot do with that. What other components would be important for people to know, so that if they're going to contact you, the time is well spent?
I think the budget is the most important, because right now we're wanting to take on projects ranging probably from $5,000 to $60,000. So right away, that kind of eliminates a lot of the smaller, maybe peripheral jobs for us. Um, One of the things they need to know is that usually we're booked about 2 months in advance. I know a lot of people, when they decide they want landscaping, they want it done like yesterday. Like, we need this done right away. But usually, we're about 2 months out. Other than that, if you contact me, I would love to hear from you. I would love to meet with you. You'll get a free quote. I honestly, that's one of the best things about being in this business, is I get to meet so many different people, and I genuinely just I love people. I love talking with them. So there's not, other than maybe a budget restriction and the timeline, if that is not an issue, then there's no other qualifications really. Like, landscaping is such a wide wheelhouse of services. It's drainage, it's the interlock, it's the retaining walls, the design aspect, the maintenance. There's all sorts of things. So yeah.
Yeah, actually knowing that is really helpful, because
Mhm.
one of the things that consumers don't want to have happen is that they're looking for somebody to provide a service to them, and they sit down at the kitchen table or wherever they have or they do it, maybe they're doing it this way now instead of face to face, I don't know, whatever, however that works for people. So you're having a conversation about what you want. You may have a budget in mind, and then you're actually kind of deciding on what you want to do, and you're getting a commitment from somebody, and then they tell you, oh, by the way, I can do that in November or October, and you're like, oh, I thought this was going to be next week, right?
Yeah.
For those of us who don't operate in this business, we kind of think, well, I'm a consumer and I have dollars to spend, and if I'm willing to spend those dollars, maybe can I get this started right away? So having a good understanding of those things is really good. The other piece that's really would be helpful to me as a consumer, because I'm kind of conceptually challenged when it comes to things in particular like this, would be that 2D imaging, right? If I could, I had this happen when we were doing work on the outside of the house, and the contractor we ended up hiring took a photo of our house from different angles and dropped it into the software, and then said, oh, how do you like this? And ta-da, there was a certain siding on the house, right? And I go, oh, well, that looks different. That's interesting. Oh, well, how about this? How about this? How about this? And you just, all you do is just keep changing it, change the colors, change the design. And that's actually how I got to the point of, yes, that is exactly what I want, because I saw what my house was going to look like done.
Yeah.
And then when it got done, it actually looked exactly like it did on his computer screen, which was perfect because that was exactly what we wanted. So I think all those components are really good. From a consumer point of view, if they can't, it's hard for them to conceptualize what it's going to look like. So I had one more question, and unless there's any other questions or comments, and we'll wrap it up. But you mentioned that somewhere between $5,000 and $60,000 is kind of, I call it your sweet spot, right? This is the place where, it fits well with your business and what you do. So if someone is wanting to do something that's going to cost approximately $1,000, do you have someone that you can refer them to get that done, that is going to do a competent job, because it happens to be really small?
Yeah, I have a couple people who are coming up and starting their own landscaping business, and I
Mhm.
can refer people to them. And even for us, depending on the time of year, if it's early in the season or late in the season, that would be even a good time to see if we might be able to do it. Because the smaller jobs at the beginning of the season, things are slower. We are much more likely to take on smaller jobs while we're waiting for more plants to become available and for the bigger jobs to be booked. And same within the fall. We do a lot of leaf cleanups, but then that would be a good time to book in smaller jobs. So there are people that we can refer you to and help you out. And then also, even though that's not in our sweet spot, like say the $1,000 project, that may be something that we will be able to take on, especially if we expand with more people working for us or more machinery. We'd be able to do smaller jobs faster.
Okay.
So
If you
we'd be able to
could,
help you out.
yeah, if you could just sort of quantify, because you say at the beginning of the season or the end of the season, give us some idea of the time
Yeah,
frame. Actually, like, when is the beginning of the season? Is
it's
that
weather dependent, right? But
okay?
usually you're looking at like mid-March to mid-April would be beginning.
Okay.
Sometimes earlier, sometimes later, and then November to December. Sometimes I've been working mid-December
Hmm.
doing
Okay.
sod. You know what I mean? Like weird stuff, but
Yeah.
that's
Excellent.
approximately.
Well, you know what? I always think every webcast we do is extremely informative. I learn tons from doing these, and I'm grateful that you took the time to spend with us and teach us a little bit more about landscaping and about what you do, um, because it really is something that people are very much focused on. It appears to me they're very much focused on right now, because um, they're trying to maximize the value of the property. That is the curb appeal, right? How does it look from the street when people are looking at it? In my case, I had a couple of neighbors that did some really nice landscaping work, and I was like, ooh. Better too.
Yeah.
But I do really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us tonight to teach us a little bit more about this. So when I post this online and make it available to people, I'll make sure to put your contact information on it as well. So if people want to get in touch with you, they know where to find you. So thank you so much for joining us tonight and giving us a little bit more information. And we really appreciate your time and your talent. And
Thank you for having me.
I in particular, because you made my property look really nice.
Yeah, I'm glad you're happy with it. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so there's the end of another webcast for another Thursday. Thank you for joining us if you joined us live. If you're viewing this after the fact, that's wonderful. We appreciate you joining us, and we hope you have a great day, and take care. Good night.